The first thing I heard was the glass, that thin, bright crack like ice breaking on a winter lake. Heads turned, music tripped over itself, and the bride, my daughter, stopped dead halfway down the aisle. She stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. And maybe she had. 5 years is a long time to convince yourself someone doesn't exist. Let me back up. I used to be the quiet person in a very loud house. My name is Lena Moore, was Lena Ellis for a long stretch, and if you'd asked anyone back then what I was into, they'd have said schedules, groceries, and disappearing without making noise. My husband Graham liked his knives facing in his fork on the left, and his feelings stored in a locked basement. Our daughter Sienna learned that language fast. For 31 days, they would not look at me. Not a word. I could have been a coat rack by the door, useful upright, not human. Day 23, I set plates down like a waiter on autopilot, whispered, "Maybe we can talk." Nothing. Sienna scrolled her phone. Graham lifted salt like a magician, making the woman vanish. Day 31. I took off my ring, set it by the coffee maker he loved more than me, and walked out with one bag and half a spine left. Freedom doesn't smell like flowers. It smelled like bleach and coin dryers and someone's dinner from the hallway. I found a studio over a laundromat, the kind of place where the mattress looks at you and says, "I've seen things." The landlady, Mrs. Duarte, sized me up with those hurricane eyes and said, "Rinse the first. No sob stories." I nodded. Later that night, there was a plastic container outside my door, still warm, note taped on top in shaky pen. "You're not as alone as you think." I ate that soup sitting on the floor with my back to the door like a bouncer, crying, even though I don't remember deciding to. I took the night shift washing dishes, 6 hours standing in steam wrists on fire, listening to the fry cook narrate his breakups into the ticket printer. Daytimes I scrubbed other people's sinks and didn't leave streaks because streaks tell on you. Sometimes weekends I rang up groceries I couldn't afford and learned every barcode for bread. My hands split, bled, healed, got ugly and strong. I stopped wearing nail polish. I started wearing no. A year in, I met June Park at a neighborhood cafe. She said, "You look like you need somewhere that remembers your name," and put me on mornings. Real bread, real coffee, real sunlight sneaking through the plants lined up in the window like a choir. Her brother was a pastor who didn't preach at me, just gave me sheet music and said, "Try." I did. Turns out my voice hadn't left. It had been gagged. The first Sunday, the note came out wobbly, then steadier. I sang my own name back to myself. I rented a tiny house with a postage stamp yard when Mrs. Duarte passed and left me a little money she called root insurance. I planted asters along the fence because they were on sale and only later noticed the label Aster Sienna. I stood in the aisle of the garden center and stared at it. For a second, I almost put them back. Then I didn't. Why should the flowers pay for what my girl did? On an ordinary Thursday, sun-warm wind chimes petty about it, my phone lit up with a number I'd deleted and never forgot. I could have let it go to voicemail. I didn't. "Lena," he said, like the word might forgive him. Silence. Then "Sienna's getting married." "Congratulations," I said, because that's what you say when your heart drops through the porch boards. She wants you there." It was not Sienna's voice on the line. It was the man who used to step around me like I was wet paint. "If she wants me," I said, "she can ask." He swallowed. "Please." I wish I could say I hung up with a clever parting shot. "Truth is," I said when, and hated how fast it came out. Greenwood Conservatory was glass and white stone and the kind of money that irons its napkins. I parked far because leaving is easier when your car is already pointing at the exit. My dress was wine red, not loud, just certain. If you've ever worn something that fits so well, you forget your body that was this dress. It wasn't clothes. It was armor. Inside, people did the whisper math of who you are and why you're here. Some tilted their heads like they were trying to place me in a memory they'd airbrushed. Graham stood near the front. He looked smaller, as if someone had let the air out of him. He saw me, and the glass went. Perfect, terrible timing. Conversations cut, the quartet scraped to a stop, and there I was still breathing. He moved like the floor wasn't agreeing to hold him. "Lena," he said, my name collapsing in the middle. "Can we somewhere private?" "No." "Please," he whispered. "There are things I need to say." "Then say them here." He looked over his shoulder at the room, and I watched him do the math he used to do with markets and rivals' cost-risk exposure. For once, the numbers didn't favor him. The doors opened. Music swelled like a throat. Sienna stepped in on her father's arm, silk and lace and every pretty dream I did not get to shop for. She smiled at a cousin, laughed at something the officiant mumbled. Then her eyes swept the room and found me. The smile left like a bird hitting glass. She stopped. The aisle stretched. Guests turned. Graham tugged her elbow. For a second, my girl looked 6 again. Wide eyes, mouth soft, wanting to run toward or away, undecided. "Mom," she said barely, and the word fell into the quiet like a coin in a church. The ceremony lurched forward after that because momentum is rude, but nobody was listening. Rings happened. Vows happened. My heart stayed in the back row and refused to stand. At the reception, I drifted to the windows, watched the manicured hedges pretend to be wild. I could hear the room trying to patch itself. Laughter too bright. Compliments stacked like sandbags. Marla Kent. One of Graham's people slid up beside me with 2 flutes. "Took 12 years to see him nervous," she murmured. "You did it in 12 seconds. I didn't do anything I said. I showed up." "Exactly," she said, and it landed the way truth does, clean a little cruel. Then Sienna Vale, trembling like a small animal, crossed the room. Caleb, the husband, reached for her hand, but she shook him off gently and kept coming. "You came," she said. "I was invited." I answered even. "Neutral costs less." "I didn't think you would. I didn't think I'd ever—" Her voice tripped and bled. "I was awful. We were. I followed Dad because it was easier than being decent. I told myself you were dramatic impossible. I erased you because it kept the kitchen quiet." Tears streaked her face, pretty and ugly all at once. "I am so sorry." I let the air count to 5. "I don't hate you." She blinked, surprised. "I just learned how to live without you," I said. "That takes up room." She nodded like a penitent. "What can I do?" "Not perform." I glanced at the phones that had been lifted, then put down under Marla's glare. "Tell the truth, because it's true, not because people are watching." She turned to the room, voice steadying. "This is my mother," she said. "I erased her. We erased her. For a month we pretended she wasn't human, and when she left, because of course she left, I let her stay gone. That's on me." The room shifted. Some people finding the floor fascinating. Somewhere a fork chimed a plate because nerves don't know where to go. Graham arrived, suit pressed, eyes wrecked. "Sienna," he said softly, "be with your husband. I need to speak with your mother." She looked at me for permission. I gave a small nod. Caleb leaned in, kind eyes, steady hands, and guided her away. Then it was just me and the man who had taught silence how to hurt. "I destroyed you," he said, no preamble. And for the first time in the years I'd known him, the mask wasn't cracked. It was off. I don't even know what I thought. That power was control, that punishment taught lessons. I was wrong. About everything I said. About everything he echoed. I told myself you were better off without me, which is a coward's prayer. I should have called. I didn't. I wanted you to come back without me saying sorry, so I could keep the crown. You don't have a crown, I said. You have consequences. He nodded, one sharp, sad movement. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. God, I want it, but I don't deserve it. I'm asking for a place to put this weight that's been sitting on my chest for 5 years. Good, I said, and my voice surprised me with how flat it was. Let it sit. Maybe then you'll recognize a human being when she's in front of you. His knees went before his logic did. He dropped palms to the parquet shoulders, shaking a sound coming out of him that didn't know what language it was. Around us, the air thinned. People hovered, then held back. Marla's hand lifted. Don't you dare interrupt this. Get up, I said. He didn't move. Not until... Then you'll be there a while. I stepped past him. Something unclenched in my chest. Nothing triumphant, just quiet. The kind you earn. Later, by the window, Marla found me again. You broke him, she said, not unkindly. He broke me first, I said, and watched a gardener outside clip a hedge into a perfect lie. Will we be a family again? I don't know. People love a tidy ending with a bow, but I've learned bows are just knots in prettier outfits. I stayed an hour long enough to eat one slice of cake and say, congratulations to a young man who married a woman built of regret and steel. Sienna hugged me in the hallway, awkward, grateful, terrified, and I let my hand rest on the back of her head for 3 seconds longer than history said I should. Then I left through the side doors past the kitchen where servers lined up plates like little moons into air that didn't ask me to be smaller. On the drive home, the radio played a song I used to hum while stirring sauce, and for a mile or two I let my throat remember. At a red light, I looked down at my hands on the wheel, ugly and strong and mine. When I pulled into my street, the asters along the fence had blown themselves silly purple everywhere, showing off for no one. I sat in the car and laughed one small, ridiculous laugh, because sometimes life is merciful in the cheapest ways. If you've ever been erased at work and love in your own kitchen, you know the quiet violence of it. Tell me what you think was I right to show up, or should I have stayed gone? Is public truth a necessary bruise or a selfish spectacle? What's the line between forgiveness and self-respect? Drop your take in the comments. I read them all. And if this hit a nerve, share it with someone who needs reminding that they're not furniture.